Basically, what we're going to be doing in this video is I'm going to be showing you how to assemble this knife. And you can put, this is kind of a tutorial of, say you took apart your knife and now it's not going back together properly because you installed weights or something, because there's the pin weights that you can install, how to install these, how to tell if you're doing it wrong. There's just a lot of parts here and it has to be done properly for it to go back together and swing correctly. So we're just going to go ahead and move on. So the first thing to notice is you are going to have your pins installed in your handles. All right, these pins have now been pressed in, and so these are not coming out without considerable effort. One of these is a slip fit and the other is a friction fit. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it together like this, push these in. I'm going to check with a block. Okay, so now I went ahead and I put a pivot through here, and we'll do that in a second, but I'm going to take this block, which is surface ground, to the dimension of which this needs to be, and I can feel that it has a little bit of wiggle here, and this block should be tight in here. So I know that this needs to come down a little bit, because if these are open, then they're not going to close properly on the blade, and it's going to cause binding. And so how we can find that is we can put these together like this and push them together right here, and then we're going to get this, and you can see this one's tight. But for this to be accurate, we want to put the pivot in, which should go in just like this, and then a screw. We're going to go ahead and put these together. Could probably get an electronic screwdriver to make this a little faster, but I haven't. And that's going to go just like that. And then I'm going to pinch this down as hard as I can and put this in. So we can see this one's tight, so this one's right. Check both sides, so that's nice and tight. The length of the pins are slightly different. The holes are sometimes not as deep as they're supposed to be. It's usually maybe a combination of the two where the pin is slightly too short. And so basically all we're going to do is we're going to go to the belt grinder and we're just going to take a tiny bit off the top of this pin. I'll just do that and come back, and then it's very little that needs to come off, and then we'll put it back together and it should be good to go. Okay, so I just took some off the pin. You can see that it's grounded like that. This is not going to go in here like this. And then you can see that that is now nice and tight. You have this, and now you have to put weights in. So I'm going to show you how to do all three, because that is the most you have to do. If you're just doing one or two of them, that's the easiest. But if you want to put all three in, here are the weights. You should come with 6 brass weights in the box. And then what you're going to do is you're going to line these up, and you're just going to try and push everything down slowly and evenly. Just like that. It should be super easy. If your weights are super tight in your pinholes, and then when you get this off, you want to be careful to make sure to get these off like this. Don't put the pivots in until everything's put together. So when you put the weight in, it should be nice, and it should slide in easily and have little to no play. And what you want to do is first you want to check and make sure that when you put this together, that there is no gap in between these. When you push it together, it's completely closed, and you can see that that is accurate. And if you put a light behind it, no light's going to shine through. So if that doesn't happen, then I recommend checking in the holes, making sure that they're clean and nothing is in them. This goes for both of them, making sure that the pin has nothing on it. And if it doesn't fit evenly in here, don't try and force it. Send me an email every once in a while, although very rarely. And I had, I think, one batch with this. These holes were slightly too tight, or the pins were slightly bigger than they were supposed to be. It was some combination of the both of them that made these tight. They're not supposed to be tight. They're supposed to go in easily, and they're supposed to go in easily enough and still be a tight enough tolerance that they don't make any noise while they're in there. If they do make noise, you can put a smidgen of oil, like some thick oil in there, and that should help them to keep from moving. Or maybe a piece of Teflon or something like that, although they shouldn't move. If you have the older weight system, you can see the remnant of it here, where it's a brass weight like this. I don't have any brass weights on hand. It's very similar. Put the weight in, put it together. If it's tight or you're having issues with it, send me an email. It's an old weight system. I hated it, so I replaced it with pins, which is so much easier. And so I installed these without weights in them, and so I'm not going to put these back together. But basically what you do is you'd put the weights in, you put it back together, you put this back pivot through, and then you do the rest of the assembly. And you should be good to go there. It should be super easy. And if you have any issues with it, feel free to send me an email. And now we got the handles together. And we can check this dimension again. Nice and tight. And nice and tight. Okay, so these are together. That was pretty easy. It's the same for pins. It just is an extra couple pins to add. So now we're going to take the blade and we're going to go ahead and check the fit of the bushings. Bushings should go in. Now these bushings came in oversized so that they're probably going to be a little bit tight in here. Go ahead and put these in. Yeah, they're just a little tight. You want them basically, if you put them in here, you want to tap them, and they should fall out pretty easily. So we're going to take this is a 1/4 inch gauge pin, and you can see it swings freely on this. So it's not the holes on the blade, it's the actual bushings, which came in oversized. If we measure them, they're going to be slightly over. So that's 1.5 10,000ths over. And this is 3 10,000ths over. So that's quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and take these down. In a previous video, I showed you how I do these. It's the same pins. And all right, so I got my bushings brought down a little bit. We're just going to test fit that. That's real nice. See, that came out easily. Same with this one. That should come out nice and easily. Okay, so that is perfect. What did I drop on my pivot needle? If you don't have a pivot needle, I recommend getting one. Indiana John sells them. Put the washers over here. Washers, as I say, are directional. You can see that this one has kind of rounded edges and this one has hard edges. The rounded edges go towards the blade. So yeah, like this. Grab a pivot. Should fit in easily. Then grab this like this, and then just go ahead and tighten this down. See, that's swinging nicely. If you have binding, I'll go over some of the issues it could be and then how to fix that yourself. If I've gone over kind of some of the diagnosis in a different video, which also applies to this knife. It's just a little more finicky with this knife because there's more parts, or it tends to be a little more finicky. Pivot needles make this so much faster. Pivot needles have probably saved me hundreds of hours. Probably not hundreds of hours, but tens of hours in assembly, which is a long time. So that's we're gonna move over here. Swings, 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 swings. Check for play. It's pretty good. The fan test. Actually, I'm gonna put some oil in this first. All right, now that the oil's in here, we're gonna go ahead and check tolerances again. And we can see that handle is actually slightly tight, so we'll go back and check that. This handle looks good. Swing there looks good. Oh, see that? That is a problem. That's why we check this dimension, because when we do the fan, let's do a quick fan, that gets caught. You may have been able to see that. See that? That gets caught. This is a smooth fan. This fan gets caught. And so this indicates that the bushing is just slightly too big for that hole. So we're gonna go ahead and disassemble this, check that, check the distance between this again, and then go back to assembly. So yeah, let's rip this apart real quick. The bite handle, however, is swinging perfectly. We're gonna check this, and we're gonna check this dimension again. This dimension is fine, I already checked that. Just double checking that. Yeah, it's small. Yep, we're good. Okay. So I'm gonna clean this. It's my gauge pin. Ooh, you can feel that's a little tight, although I think that's where the rust is. All right, I can feel a tiny bit of catch there. It's nothing crazy. Check the dimension on this. We should be good there. Let's check this. Okay, that's slightly smaller than usual. That could be causing a slight issue. The 0.1265s. The Ions and Voltaics usually prefer slightly more oversized bushings. So I'm gonna grab something that's a little bigger and then try that. Where with the galvanist, you can get pretty close tolerances. This usually likes bigger ones. I'm gonna visually inspect the hole, see if there's any burrs or anything in there. That looks good. I'm going to grab a 1/4-inch reamer and just by hand put that in there. Just feel that. Okay, there was a slight catch in there. That might have just been a slight burr that was left over from a finishing process. And I can visually inspect that hole again. Make sure there's nothing in there. I usually grab a light and then I can visually inspect that. All right, I actually just dug through my bushing bin and checked a couple dimensions and found one that's gonna work way better in this because bushings are even slightly different. You can see that this one goes in and then taps right out. So that's exactly how a bushing should fit. So that goes right in there. We're gonna grab new washers. Well, I could probably reuse these. I'm not going to. I might reuse them for different knives, but considering I was chasing an assembly issue, I'm not gonna put old washers back on that can make a new issue or help an old issue. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in. That immediately feels better. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this a bit more. This is actually broken and this middle area turns, and so it kind of works as a torque wrench, but I don't always want it to. So just tighten that a little bit, tighten that. Let's move over here. That's good. That's good. That's good. Gotta put some oil in it. Yeah, it's great. If I'm holding the handle, it's not gonna swing. Yeah, so that is put together. For tap. Check for play. There's a little more than usual, but that's not like bad. Basically, as long as the knife doesn't tap and has, like, if I can do a tap test like this and I don't feel anything move, then it's good. If I can do that, then the play here is going to be pretty minimal. So yeah, that's the assembly of an Ion. The Voltaic is basically the same exact assembly. The Ion and the Voltaic are just slightly different weighted knives and with a different face on them. Other than that, they run on the exact same system and functionally are exactly the same. It's just one of them has a different face and they're weighted differently, so they're very different flipping experiences. So yeah, doing the fan feels good. So that is how you assemble one of these. And then if you ever want to put weights in, you can just take a face off, put the weights in, put a face back on. You don't even necessarily have to take apart the knife. I would probably recommend, if you're gonna put weights in, take apart the knife, clean it, take all the oil out, put it back together. Maybe have a new set of washers. You don't necessarily need them, but if it goes back together and binds, make sure you're putting the same bushings in the same handles or in the same holes, because every once in a while there's just slight tolerance differences between the bushings and the holes themselves, and then that can cause issues, and you're putting the same back handles on the side. So basically just know, okay, this handle and these bushings, they're gonna go over there. It goes on this side, it goes on the safe handle, and then the same with the other one. So that's what I recommend doing. It shouldn't make a difference, but if you put it back together and binds, maybe try that first. If you're still having issues after that, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to look them over. I have assembled hundreds of these. I know how to do it. So yeah, that's the assembly process of an Ion. And it's, like I said, the same for a Voltaic.